thinks that we need to do something about this, and that's why I was very pleased that Mr. Sunstein spent so much time with us, because it's probably one of the few things I might agree with the President's administration on, but I believe this is an area where we can all come together and recognize that, you know, it does have, these regulations do have an effect on jobs, and my district in particular, which is the 9th District of Virginia, which is a large district. Some would call it rural. Others might not. It's heavily dependent on manufacturing and mining. We do have a university or two in the mix, but it's heavily dependent on that, and we're seeing the effects of these regulations. You indicated in your comments that you felt like that if we started, you know, rolling back some regulations, it might make things less predictable. And I'm just wondering if you had the opportunity to hear the testimony in front of one of the committees where Notre Dame came in and testified that in 2004 they attempted to comply with what they believed the EPA regulations were going to be in regard to boilers. And of course, the EPA has backed off of its boiler MAC regulations, but they were very concerned about it because they spent millions of dollars to comply with what they thought the EPA wanted, only to find out a few years later that that wasn't good enough and that they weren't going to be able to qualify as a valid boiler if the new regulations had come into effect. And you know, these are folks who were really trying, and I just can't agree with you. I believe that we need to do more to make things predictable. And Mr. Kovacs, if I might ask you, on page 12 of your prepared statement, you've got a copy. I believe I've seen this or a similar chart before of all the new regulations coming into effect at that time. And again, Boiler MAC is now, if not, it's on the back burner, if not off the stove completely. But you can look at all those colors from over there and see if a member of your organization, doesn't matter which agency, whether it's EPA or OSHA, sees that much coming at them, do you think that they think that's predictability in regulation?
Well, it's clearly not predictability.
That's why I asked it.
Whatever is going to change, I think that I just like to make a point without being stuck to the yes or no, and that is we've been talking about jobs all day, and if jobs are really being created by all of these rules, then the Environmental Protection Agency should be implementing the continuing jobs analysis that it's got under 321 and all the other rules. I mean, there are mechanisms. If you go through everything that Congress has done for the last 30 years, you have least restrictive alternatives. It's never applied. You have unfunded mandates. Anytime it's over $100 million, there are an entire list of issues to be done. You have within each of the environmental statutes some form of this continuing jobs analysis. We have it there. It's not being done. And so there are ways to bring resolution to this issue. But going back to your question is, yes, that is an enormous amount of regulatory uncertainty. But if you look going forward between this healthcare, which I'm not an expert on, or financial services, we went from the 137 to the 224. That chart's going to go this way.
And so if I understand your answer in general and your other comments as well, what I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing you say is that if, as some would like to think, that regulations actually create jobs, then they should embrace congressional requests that they establish what jobs they are creating and what the impact is on jobs, because if these regulations are so good for jobs, a requirement to detail the jobs effect of a regulation would come out that these regulations are actually helping everybody. And so the EPA and the administration and all the others ought to actually get behind the TRAIN Act and other acts that call for more data that show that these regulations are in fact creating jobs, if that is true. Is that what you're saying, sir?
Absolutely. That is what they should do. Congress has already mandated it in the other statutes, but I would even go one step further.
Yes, sir.
EPA uses proprietary models. It doesn't use the public models as required under the Data Quality Act. It should begin releasing all of its models so we can see the assumptions. It should go in and begin applying the Data Quality Act, which the administrator said gave a hint to, that it is a good way of testing the statistics, the data, the information. The agencies have written, since Congress passed that in 2000, the agencies have literally written that out. And the only thing it says is that the agencies are to open up their data, that are to use the most up-to-date data, to put that data in the record, and to allow that data to be peer-reviewed and tested within the system. That hasn't occurred since the law has passed.
Thank you, sir. I see my time is up, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman. We're ready to close. I think one thing I'm getting out of this panel is that the frustration that routinely the federal agencies ignore the requirements contained in such laws as Mr. Kovac